Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 40. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Station. Dave, as we march forward towards Sunday night, big Week 8 game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Green Bay Packers, a primetime showing as Aaron Rodgers tries to beat his original former team and beat all 32 teams in the NFL to join a very small and exclusive club. So, Dave, how you doing?
Yeah, happy Wednesday. A lot of interesting things tied to this game. Obviously, on Sunday night with the Steelers and the Packers, and the whole Aaron Rodgers versus his old team, and that's one interesting nugget there that Aaron Rodgers will try to become, what is it, the fifth quarterback to beat all 32 teams, something fifth or sixth, something like that there. So that's one storyline. The Packers are trying to pawn it off like it's not really Aaron Rodgers versus his former team. It's more the Green Bay Packers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to my understanding, Aaron Rodgers, I think, is going to talk to the Green Bay media on, was it Thursday? I think he's going to have a segment, and I think today is Aaron Rodgers' normal talk with the media. So I'm sure there'll be a few things to be passed along there. Be interesting to hear Aaron Rodgers asked about the whole Broderick Jones thing. I know Broderick Jones talked on it Monday there, and that obviously has become a little bit of a topic of conversation. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers will be asked a lot of questions about facing his former team and everything that goes along with that, and the potential of him maybe beating all 32 teams, that kind of thing there. So there's a built-in storyline there. Couple other interesting nuggets related to this game is that the Green Bay Packers are 0-6 in their last 6 games against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. The last time they beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh was 1970. Bart Starr, quarterback there. Starr versus what? I guess that would have been Bradshaw's early years there, right? Or rookie season there. So
Right.
Yeah, and look, I went back and watched the all 22 of all the passing plays, and the tape. I'll tell you this: the tape has not changed.
Still the same tape?
Yeah, still
Okay.
still the same tape is there, and it is a bit depressing. The more you dive into it, and I was charting up the coverages and watching specifically on the 20-something targets that Jamar Chase had and the receptions he had and how he was dealt with on those specific plays. And yeah, just look, if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I'm pouring through that tape, and even though they usually like to try to run a lot of tight end personnel groupings, it'll be interesting to see if they run maybe a little bit more 11 and try to do a few things with their top 2 wide receivers, much in the way that the Bengals did. And I just thought the Bengals, look, there's a lot of blame to go in on the Steelers side here.
Sure.
Their coverage just in general was horrible. But I did think that Zach Taylor and the Bengals really had a good game plan of either putting Jamar Chase in bunches or singling them out to one side, or the quick screen game to him. They used empty quite a bit as well too in this game too, and the Steelers had no answer for it. Whether it be cover 1, cover 2 man, cover 3. They played a couple of cover six situations, some quarters within there. They mixed up anything and everything, and they really had no answer for it. And I know you've got a great post up this morning that we'll talk about should this team play more dime? They certainly should consider it the next time that they play the Bengals. That's for sure. And look, they got to next time these two teams meet. You didn't see the Steelers blitz a lot in this game overall. And it didn't matter. The ball was still coming out quick either way. And that's another aspect of this game that we talked about the other day is just how quick Joe Flacco got the football out. I think Joe Flacco made great decisions. The Steelers really didn't do a lot to get him off of his first reads. And quite honestly, this Jamar Chase probably could have had at least 20 catches in this game and maybe even 23 or 24. I mean, that's how dominant he was. A dominant player, just outclassed the Steelers easily in this game. So with all that said, we got other stuff to talk about. We'll talk a little bit more about this game in the middle of the show, but we got a little bit of housekeeping to talk about, and obviously Mike Tomlin held his Tuesday press conference.
Yeah, let's start with a move the Pittsburgh Steelers made on Tuesday during the off-day. Quarterback Logan Woodside, who was signed mid-training camp after Will Howard's injury, had been on the practice squad all season. He was released, and so a minor move in the grand scheme and scope of things. But the question is, now Pittsburgh has just two quarterbacks in the entire organization that are healthy and available and practicing with the team, and of course Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph. Woodside had been practicing with the team, I assume on scout team. So it begs the question, is there a quarterback on IR ready to be activated or at least have his window open to return? You got two of them in the rookie Will Howard and Skylar Thompson. You would assume one of those guys will have their practice window open, I would imagine, today. They gave them three quarterbacks to run through practice. It's hard to get through a practice with just two quarterbacks. So we'll see if that happens, A. And then, of course, the question is, if that is the plan and the intent to activate or have the window open on one of these guys, which one will it be? Will it be the rookie in Howard or the veteran in Thompson?
Yeah, and I suppose you have the option to do both of them, but it seems kind of, do you think they'll do both? And if they don't, who are you leaning towards seeing their window open? A lot of people obviously listening to this show, and some of the beat writers and analysts say it's time to get Will Howard rolling again. And look, he's obviously, he should be fully healthy at this point, as really you would think not Logan Woodside, Skylar Thompson as well too here. So, but if you're looking at a scout team, who's the one that's probably more, I guess, versed in being able to give you some of the better looks, having done a lot of scout team stuff in the past. So my mind tends to wonder, or my speculation tends to be that I think we might see Skylar Thompson have his window open up here.
If you made me lean a direction, I would go Thompson, maybe 51-49, but it really could go either way. Thompson just is the veteran, and Pittsburgh likes having three veteran options at quarterback. Maybe it would open up then at Howard's window late in the season, the way that you did with Roman Wilson, Logan Lee last year. But again, I think this thing really could go either way. I have no strong feelings of which quarterback it will be. It's just certainly something to watch, because you would imagine that's going to happen today with the team returning to practice and getting after this week for the Packers game. So I would also assume that if one of these quarterbacks has their window open, Pittsburgh will use all 21 days before having to activate them to the 53-man roster. You can have them practice in full like any other player during this 21-day window, and I don't think Pittsburgh's in a big rush to get that guy on the 53, even though they do have that open roster spot right now. So I think they'll utilize the entire 3-week time frame before making that next step and officially putting one of these quarterbacks on the 53.
Yeah, the only way you could theorize maybe it happening before the 21-day window is obviously if Aaron or Mason were to get hurt.
Sure.
Because why tie up. Now look, if a guy has his window open, he's obviously not on the 53, so he's not going to be an emergency quarterback on game day situation for you until one of comes back to the 53-man roster there. But maybe we'll get word on that by the time we finish this show. But they tend to, I think, start practicing. I don't know. Say it's kind of mixed of when they announce those moves, but it does feel like one of those guys at least will have their window open today. And I'm with you, Alex. I think we'll see the full window. Will Skyler have any trade value whatsoever between now and the trade deadline if they were to open his window and then activate him to the 53?
No, none.
Yeah, especially when you look around the landscape of the NFL right now, probably not. So we'll wait and see which one it is, but it does feel like something's coming today.
Not to go down this rabbit hole, we had a good question during our Monday live stream about the potential risk Pittsburgh is taking with just two quarterbacks on the 53. If there ever was a situation where both those quarterbacks went down in game, Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph, Pittsburgh would be in a really tough spot. And so they traditionally have used three quarterbacks, and they began the season with three quarterbacks, Thompson being that emergency third string guy for the season opener before he went on injured reserve. Should Pittsburgh have that third quarterback more often in the future and get that guy on the 53 right away just to have a plan for that worst case scenario?
Yeah, I think it all depends, on the overall general health of your roster. I mean, not just the quarterback position, but how many guys are you going to have inactive due to injury? And knock on wood, this feels like a healthy bunch, at least coming out of this kind of mitigated by, short buy or whatever you want to call it type situation. And we'll talk here in a minute about Calvin Austin's situation and all like that. And you still are carrying an extra wide receiver in Keyshawn right now as well too. We know that you could probably get out of the game. Nobody wants to see it. But if you were to get into a game where both Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph went down, you could put Kenneth Gainwell out there and run some wildcat. Does Scotty Miller have any extra traits that you could maybe?
He probably does. But I mentioned on Monday, Gainwell was a high school quarterback, so I think he'd be the most logical option in that dire situation.
Yeah, my short answer is it doesn't feel like a huge need unless you did have a luxury of an extra roster spot to carry a third quarterback and just make him, obviously inactive, but the emergency tag on top of it there. So my short answer is, as long as those two guys are healthy, and God forbid if you got in a situation, hopefully it would be much later in the game. And look, if you're to lose Aaron Rodgers during a game and Mason Rudolph was to come into a game, you're probably going to call a game, at least from an offensive type situation, where you're going to probably try not to get him hopefully hit as much and injured. And he's not one that really takes off with the football that much anyway. But I just think that this team seems to be fine overall for now, at least trying to get out of games with two quarterbacks. And then, obviously if one got hurt, you had to finish one with Kenneth Gainwell. Whichever one of these guys has their windows open, then obviously the next week that he would be your backup, and then you would have to look at whether or not you wanted to put a number 3 on the roster at that point.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh is obviously comfortable with two quarterbacks. Probably at least half the league, if not more, have just two quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. It's just to maximize and make most efficient your overall group. The concern would be the point that you made, where not the scenario of losing both quarterbacks. While that's always a possibility, it's unlikely. But if Rodgers were to miss time and you're down to just one, I think as an OC, you call a game differently because you're focused on, we got to protect our quarterback, make sure he's not going to get hurt too. Otherwise, we're really in trouble at that point if we lose both of our quarterbacks. So that'd be the value, I think, in having that third string emergency quarterback. But I don't think this team's losing a lot of sleep over having just two on game day right now.
I agree.
All right, Dave, let's go to Mike Tomlin, talk about the health of this team. And they are a pretty healthy team overall. I think most amount of optimism Mike Tomlin has had on Calvin Austin was shown on Tuesday when he talked about him hopefully getting back and expecting Austin to practice. And Austin's been speaking to reporters and seems optimistic he'll suit up in Week 8, Sunday night against the Packers. And that's the real kind of injury note to note. Tomlin mentioned other bumps and bruises from the Bengals game, but nothing significant there. The corners got beat up a little bit, but all those guys will play against Green Bay. So from my 53-man roster standpoint, it's really just watching Calvin Austin with the expectation that he's going to practice today. We'll see if that's limited or full. We don't know exactly what that will look like. Hopefully full for Austin, but the belief is he's going to be good to go for the weekend.
Yeah, the optimism is there, according to Mike Tomlin, both with him and I guess Calvin Austin III as well, too. So we will see what Wednesday presents. I imagine there's going to be other guys listed on the injury report later this afternoon, some rest guys and veteran days off, and maybe a couple other guys with just some minor nicks. But Mike Tomlin doesn't seem to be too concerned about availability of those guys with the bumps and bruises, and they will monitor Calvin Austin throughout the week.
And then from the injured standpoint, Malik Harrison working his way back, and Mike Tomlin even mentioning that Cory Trice Jr. is close to practicing. He was asked about that and just said he is, in terms of the question being framed as, is Trice close to having his window open or at least practicing? So will that happen today? Will Pittsburgh start to clean up that IR list with some of those eligible names with a quarterback, with a Cory Trice Jr.? Could Malik Harrison be officially activated off of IR later this week? That could happen, I would imagine, by Saturday's 4 p.m. deadline. So might get some movement on getting these guys back practicing and then back to the roster.
Yeah, I would imagine probably if they did end up just Malik Harrison alone activating him, who gets waived more than likely? DeMarvin Leal, possibly?
Well, they have an open spot right now, right? They have the open
Oh, that's true.
spot.
Yeah, they do have an
So
open
you don't
roster
have to
spot.
do anything.
Yeah. So what if you get Cory Trice up and running today and wanted to activate him as well, too? Then I suppose it runs into a situation of Leal.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the names. Leal could be one. Could Logan Lee be another? But I just hadn't given a
Keyshawn
lot of
could,
thought.
I
think Keyshawn
suppose.
stays. I think he'll
Yeah.
stay. But I think Lee, who's lost the hat to Oto Maywa, and Leal, too, as a fifth outside linebacker with a healthy group also makes sense.
If anything, with Austin coming back from this injury and supposing he's ready to go, you probably just don't want to roll him right around. You probably want to take the punt return duties off of him, right?
And well, I think it's also that Keyshawn Williams has just done well as a returner. So it's less even about that aspect of exposure for Austin, but just to recognize that Keyshawn Williams has done a nice job and kind of given a jolt back there. So that's kind of where I come from the standpoint of just let Williams keep doing his thing on kick and punts.
All right. Mike Tomlin wasn't pressed about whether or not for sure we'd see Malik this weekend or not get activated, nor was he pressed on will indeed this be the week that Cory Trice has his window open. So maybe we'll know that by the end of the day.
And I believe Isaiah Loudermilk is eligible to have his window open as well. Will that happen? We'll see. There is no great need to do that with the defensive line room healthy, but that's a new name eligible for that list. So it's Trice, the quarterbacks, and Loudermilk are the eligible players, with Harrison already having his window open and practicing with a team that began last Monday.
All right. Where to from here?
Well, should mention also, just to get confirmation, even though I think it's felt obvious from the moment it happened, Mike Tomlin confirming Miles Killebrew is out for the season with that knee injury suffered in Week 6, running down a kick against Cleveland. Killebrew posted a surgery photo a couple days ago, and so Tomlin confirming that he will not return in 2025.
And I suppose, too, technically, you've got a practice squad spot open. We'll see. They'll probably fill that today. What is the position of need for a practice squad positionally spot?
I don't think there's a position of real need because the team is largely healthy. They'll probably have some tryout guys to come in. I don't know where lines are a little bit thinner, just from a number standpoint in your roster.
Tight end maybe to help prepare for the Packers?
Yeah, it could be. It could be any position, really. It could be additional cornerback help, another, I don't know, outside linebacker come in, somebody that circles back that got the HEVO a couple weeks ago. I really hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about what position, but an offensive lineman. I mean, you could see a variety of guys come in.
All right. We'll wait to see if we get that today.
All right, what did Mike Tomlin have to say beyond the health of his team during his Tuesday press conference? I don't think there was anything major there. Maybe the most weighty comment was on the secondary, saying that the play of the secondary, which was highly touted and a lot of big names brought in, and Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay, and you signed Juan Thornhill, Tomlin said, quote, hasn't met my vision in terms of the play of the secondary, but Tomlin also noting he's not discouraged by this group and expects things to improve.
Yeah, don't don't tell me about the labor pain. Show me the baby, especially coming off of this tape the other day. Yeah, he told no lies. It certainly has not met his vision to this point, nor has it probably met our vision as well too. What we thought maybe this secondary could be. So there are no lies there when it comes to that. But it was kind of short and to the point, and he didn't expand other than, what, a 2-sentence, 3-sentence reply. We're just going to keep working. That's his answer to everything. We're just going to keep working. We're just going to keep rolling the ball out there, Alex.
That's all he can do, and it'll be a good test against Green Bay this weekend. You knew Tomlin would be asked about it, and you knew the answer probably wasn't going to satisfy anybody, but was asked about Nick Herbig's lack of snaps in this one, 27, 28, 29 snaps in this game, and why Herbig played so little after the team showed a lot of commitment and vowed to get Herbig on the field and not limit him, and called him the 12th starter for that Browns game. Didn't feel like it during this Bengals outing. Tomlin said about it, quote, our inability to control the run and limiting one-dimensional passing circumstances probably affected his participation some, but again, we got a lot of good players. As I mentioned often when you guys talk about playing time, just keep watching, end quote. He then invoked Pat Freiermuth and all the questions about Freiermuth and his playing time, and he quipped that no one's asking about Freiermuth playing time now after his great game against the Bengals. So I know that it is an easier problem to say and talk about. Yeah, we'll get Herbig on the field, and then actually doing that has some level of challenge to it. But I don't think you could just sit there and say, well, you couldn't stop the run, and so Herbig couldn't play. Even granting that, there were still certainly some moments where Herbig should be on the field, including that final drive by the Bengals.
Inability to control a run. How do you interpret limiting one-dimensional passing circumstances? How would you
Third and
define?
longs.
Okay.
Third and longs. Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh couldn't get, I don't know how many the Bengals had, if any, 3rd and 7+ in this one, where Pittsburgh could use that 3 outside linebacker package, which I think they use 5 times in this game, 4 or 5 times in this game. And that's when you can easily get Herbig and Watt and Highsmith on the field, which was used quite a bit against the Browns, but maybe a little bit less so against the Bengals. But I would still say in that final possession, Herbig should just be on the field for your best players, and I would really suggest that Bronco 3 outside linebacker package. I know that Tomlin, if pressed upon it, would say, well, you're concerned about stopping the run, and we hadn't stopped the run. The Bengals were still in position to be able to run the football. But I think at the very least, that's a moment where Herbig has to be out there.
Right. And look, they didn't stop the run with him off the field.
True.
And as far as true tech, now here's where you can sometimes get into splitting hairs and going back through the all 22 again, and yeah, in fact, let me pull up the game real quick here to get the exact number of actual runs that this team had, or the Bengals had, against the Steelers here. You had 11 runs by Chase Brown. You had 7 by P. Ryan. So that's 18 design runs. And then Flacco, you got kneel downs in those 5 within there. And then he obviously took off with one of those on kind of the busted play, I guess, if you will, there. So you take out all those Flacco runs because they ain't gonna those aren't designs in nature. 18 total runs, and they ran 72 offensive plays, and once again, a handful of those were kneel downs in there. I think what kind of gets lost in this as well too, are some of those kind of run game complementary stuff, the quick screens to the wide receivers, which they obviously did a couple of those to Chase, and I think to Chase Brown as well too. But even then, adding those kind of manufactured, run game type quick passes and even a few of the RPOs, or even kind of what they would call package plays within there. Is that enough? Well, they threw the ball a lot in this game, right? So it just, to me, it goes back to, overall, I don't like the response or the answer to why Herbig had his snap count muted.
Yeah, I just don't think it was good enough, and there's still kind of a feeling out process, and some games are easier to get him on the field and get all those guys playing time than others. The Browns game was really easy to do that with the lead, forcing the Browns to throw and play from behind. And the circumstances were different in this one, but again, all I can do is look at what the team has to say, and the team clearly talks about we want to play this guy, and their actions of getting him the 12th starter nod, which is pretty rare to do, and then for Austin to make those comments, and then just look at the actual play and say Herbig is a guy that deserves to play more than fractional snaps, 33%, 40%, whatever the numbers are. You combine all of that, and I think it's easy to be disappointed by his usage in a loss in a game where he was getting after the quarterback. He had a couple of pressures on a day where your pass rush wasn't great, in part because you couldn't stop the run. The ball was getting out quick, but even in some of those third and long situations, those are moments where Herbig should be out there.
All right, just keep watching, Alex.
Just keep watching. All right, anything else from Tomlin? It really was a pretty low-key press conference. He deferred and kind of punted and joked about any questions about the Acrisure Stadium grass. He says he doesn't even know who cuts his own grass at his house, and so he's not focused on that. The field has been resodded. It was right after that Browns game at home, and so it should be in good shape for the Packers game.
Yeah, gave him a chance to filibuster some of that 26, 27 minutes or whatnot. I'd much rather answer questions about grass than he would how that defense played defending grass.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about all that, and I don't know what did Narduzzi come out and say, just to bring because I don't think we hit on this the other day as well. What did Narduzzi say about he could have probably lobbed off a call to Mike Tomlin or something?
Yeah, Narduzzi said he kind of felt guilty and took the blame for not informing Tomlin after the Panthers had played a game at home and realized the field was getting in pretty bad shape, that he should have informed the Steelers, hey, this field's not looking great. You guys should do something about that or be aware of that fact. So, I mean, there should be still a ground crew that would take inventory of the field for the Steelers without having the Panthers side having to tell somebody about it. So I don't fault Narduzzi for anything.
Right. And I don't want to spend time talking about grass and field conditions, even though that kind of thing needs to be addressed. We don't need to see the field be as poor as it was against the Browns a couple of weeks ago, and hopefully that won't be the case. I don't know. Maybe they should make maybe they should allow that thing to be kind of crappy, so just maybe slow down those receivers a little bit there. But all right. He several times he kept circling back to saying the inability to stop the run.
Right, and just talked about it was more, he actually said it was really simple of why Pittsburgh could not stop the run, just guys not getting off of blocks and not being gap sound, and I think those things are true. I think often run defense is not, mystical in why it goes well or why it struggles. It's pretty fundamental and foundational, so I don't think Tomlin is wrong, but of course you got to go out there and fix it.
Yeah, and he mentioned a couple of the big plays that Chase Brown had, a couple of those runs, and that largely the defense played well through the first quarter, and then second quarter is when things started obviously to go south at that point. Now, look, the Steelers did not only lose this game because of the inability to stop the run, especially when, once again, even if you take the package plays and the RPOs and the actual runs, percentage wise, this is still a Bengals team that threw the ball a lot and threw the ball successfully. And I was surprised what did he say more about kind of the posture and the actual coverages and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got distracted looking at Jeremy Fowler's latest commentary on the Steelers and the trade buzz. There really wasn't anything new. It was that Pittsburgh believes they can afford to wait it out. So can you spit that back to me about Tomlin's comments?
The comments about how they could have been better in coverage, and I think one of the I'm trying to find the answer here about the posture and things of those along those lines that he had to
Yeah,
say.
I think the one question was about, can you press Jamar Chase more? Can you be more physical with him and not allow some of those free releases? And the question, I think, was directed more towards, can you play some press man on this guy? And Tomlin really didn't address the question. He just said you can also do some up posture in zones in terms of playing some cover two. I would assume that would be in kind of rerouting and being physical without playing man coverage, but disrupting some of the timing of the route and the stem of the route and those types of things. So Tomlin really didn't address the question. He just kind of offered that part and saying you can do some of the same things in zone coverage. It doesn't have to be just pure press man.
Now, look, they barely got hands on Chase off the line, period, even in man situations. And the Bengals once again did a good job of either putting Jamar Chase in a bunch and getting rub-offs and releases, easy ones out of that. And really the most contact he ever had in the game was on the touchdown against Ramsey.
Right. A lot of pushing and shoving, and Ramsey got called for DPI there, which I thought was pretty questionable, but I guess ultimately moot. When you enter your charting, did you chart how often Pittsburgh was able to bump and jam and get hands on Chase at the line of scrimmage?
I did not, but if I had done that, it would have been very few.
Well, let's kind of talk about your charting. So you charted the defense. You felt like they were
I
kind of
charted the coverages and all. I matched up the coverages and then went through the play, all the pass attempts once again, and they rolled out. And we talked about this the other day. And cover 4, cover 1, cover 2 man. There was a screen in there on the fourth play to Chase. That was quick out to the. I think that was the one out to the right side, I believe, for 8 yards. Cover 1, cover 3, cover 1, cover 2 man, cover 3, cover 2, cover 2. Another quick screen to Jamar to the other side. Cover 1, cover 1, cover 2 man, cover 3, cover 3, cover 2 man. And this is where it got a little bit frustrating. There was the end of the first half there where they just played cover 3, and then three cover 2 mans, and 2 of those went to Jamar Chase, 1 for 13, 1 for 8, as they just chewed up yardage. Cover 2 man was an incomplete to Chase. Cover 2, another screen, cover 6, they rolled through a lot of different coverages here, but the fact of the matter is here, even in some of these like cover 1 type situations, the coverage is either so far off or Chase got a free release on.
How did you chart that last catch that Chase had getting open over the middle on that shallow cross?
Cover 1.
Yeah,
at the 2-minute mark.
Right, but obviously it was a bust on that play.
It was
there
a
was
bust.
That
It's hard. It's hard to even know who's supposed to have that.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think Ramsey thinks the safety's supposed to cut it the way that Thornhill did earlier in the game, that cone coverage, but Pittsburgh was not playing that coverage. I think they were playing cover 1, and that's where wires got crossed.
And then cover 1 on kind of the dagger, if you will, on the T. Higgins for 28 yards.
How did you chart the Yosevas catch, the 37-yarder, that specialty coverage?
Let me find that in here. Cover 2 man.
Was that cover 2 man?
That's what I have it as.
But they weren't playing. The safeties weren't playing zone.
Maybe it was could have been cover 6, cover 2 to one side.
I think it's a specialty coverage. It's a bracket coverage where they're doubling. The safeties are in man coverage on Higgins and Chase, and there is no safety up over the top. So, it's kind of cover 0 in the sense of there is no, deep safety help. But, I don't know exactly what the vocabulary would be for that play, but I think it'd be a specialty, bracket coverage.
All right. I'll have to go back and relook at that one.
But I mean, you had felt like the Steelers defense was kind of static. We were talking about it, I think, Friday or Monday. Do you feel like it still was static, or do you just think the execution of it was poor?
Well, I mean, as far as stuff and rotations go, I mean, they even had some inverted cover two in here, right?
Hmm.
That we saw with Slay, and then a couple of times too, Slay being up over top. In a few instances that he was up over top of Jamar Chase was fruitless. Either he's too far off, or in there was no way he's going to keep with him. And then on a couple of times when you had not Jamar, Jalen Ramsey singled up on him, he just got easily beat by Jamar Chase in those situations. So it's a combination of, hey, there was very little getting your hands and rerouting
Hmm.
Chase, period. But once again, they use a lot of they would condense in the splits. They would bring him inside. Heck, on one of those catches, even too, Jamar Chase chips and goes out easy free release off of the chip and gets the catch.
Hmm.
They just did not do a good job of contesting hardly anything that he had.
I do think it makes it tough, though, because Chase is a very versatile player, and he has been throughout his career. This is not new. I remember us specifically talking about the Bengals game last year. My first takeaway was, man, Chase aligns everywhere. He'll play fullback sometimes and release out, kind of what you had just mentioned, some backfield stuff with him. So it's a little bit harder to get hands on him because they do a good job with moving him all around the formation. I guess the ultimate question is, for the rematch in Week 11, what should Pittsburgh do differently to rectify and remedy Chase going off on them Thursday night? What is the solution?
You have to put your most athletic, longest guy on him, and then give that more probably Joey Porter Jr., the most physical, athletic guy you can on him, and give safety help over the top. That's to me the best way. And then every instance that, because look, they would spread out too. They would go five wide with empty on this as well too, and you've got to find a way. The toughest thing to do is when he's in a condensed either or in a bunch of trying to line a guy right up on him to get hands on him. Because if he's in a bunch, you have to play off a little bit so you can. But then what they do is they just rub you off on him if you're in a man situation.
Yeah, you can't roll up on the bunch because the point
Right.
guy, assuming the Chase is not the point guy, is going to be able to disrupt there. So you have to play more off coverage. So the solution is that one double, one idea of take your kind of second best corner, which is Porter, and then double Chase, and then have Ramsey single on Higgins. Is that the thought?
More than likely, yeah. And
Yeah.
then at least try to force the ball. You got to make guys like T. Higgins and Yosebas and whatever tight end they roll out there, probably Fant out there, be the ones that beat you.
Yeah, and this isn't to say you use it on every single play. You
No,
would not use this coverage all the time. It'd be sort of more passing situations, some kind of big gotta have it type of moments. The concern that I would have, and I've suggested that idea, and I believe it's one thing Pittsburgh should incorporate a lot more of for this rematch, though, is Porter comfortable moving all around the formation? He's a little less flexible than He's a lot less flexible than Jalen Ramsey, and he maybe even less flexible than Darius Slay, who was getting some more slot reps in this one. So because Chase is a guy that can align all over, it's a little bit harder because you got to make sure Porter is comfortable doing all of that. But I still think you can make it work, especially with a double help. Then Porter has leverage and has more help, and he's not defending the entire field and the whole route tree the way that he would be if he was truly one-on-one in the slot.
right. And another thing we didn't see them too. There were how many times did they blitz in this game? How many times did they really try to heat up Joe Flacco, even though the ball was coming out?
I can pull up my charting here. It probably wasn't a ton, in part because, as you mentioned, the ball was getting out so quick and they weren't in those third and longs, and so they weren't in situations where they felt like they really could blitz as effectively. I know Ramsey blitzed a couple times. Elliott had a couple of decent rushes, and so there was some evidence of it, but it probably wasn't as often as it was, say, against Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, And look, I mean, and the times when they would, rush 4 and drop 7, they still weren't able to, the ball was either and look, they slanted them and rub them off that way. They didn't have an answer for anything that they did, especially when Chase was involved in this.
Per my charting, I got 34.1% blitz rate in this game, which is about seasonal average, maybe a bit above. So it wasn't abnormally high or low, would be my conclusion.
Okay. Well, they obviously weren't getting to him or putting hardly any pressure on him.
Right. Yeah, no question about
And
that.
and once again, he had the second quickest time to throw, but it wasn't like he was having to cut. You got to make him come off that first read more times than not, and they certainly didn't do a good job of that.
Yeah, part of the quick snap to throw times means that first read is often open because the ball's getting out in rhythm on that first progression. Whenever you force quarterbacks to go to second and third reads, their snap to throw times naturally increase because they're just simply taking more time to have to go to that second or third option.
And anytime they would try to kind of stack the box or something like that is when they would either have the quick RPO out to or kind of the package play, if you will, where it's kind of built in to that. But Joe Flacco did a great job of identifying and the way that they used their motion to identify, and then the Steelers were just people want to get more into the, how predictable the defense was. I think it was more along the lines of formationally with and without motion and down the distance. Joe Flacco pretty quickly got a pretty good read on what he was seeing.
So if you could break it up or break it down to the best of your ability, what kind of percent blame would you put on the coaching staff and scheme and plan in this game? And what percent blame would you assign to the players in the execution of that plan?
I mean, it's no better than a D minus on both of those, really. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that was bad, but in terms of percent, would the majority blame go to the coaches? Should it go to the players after rewatching every snap and charting the relevant snaps? Any different feelings on where blame starts?
I do give, and nobody wants to hear this. Zach Taylor called a hell of a damn game. They were a lot. The Steelers got out coached on this when it came from the Bengals offensive plan versus the Steelers defensive plan. So the coaching there, they were out coached severely there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
And as far as the players go, I mean, they just, there was miscommunication. I mean, you can't have guys running wide open like you saw happen in this game, especially in key moments of the game. So that, that comes down to some player stuff as well too. And then the other aspect I would say too is that Slay is a shell of himself. Ramsey's not the cover guy that he used to be, and certain. And look, the tackling was poor as well too. And when you look at the quick pass over the middle to T Higgins, he catches that at about the 19 or the 18-yard line, and that's on the players as well too, as much yards after the catch that they gave.
So would you put it kind of right down the middle, 50-50?
It was bad. It was bad. It was bad all the way around.
Okay. It was. Yeah, there's no question about that. I do think, well, you're right. I mean, Ramsey can't run like he used to. Slay certainly can't. I think that 4-day turnaround on the road is really tough on those veteran guys. So I would like to think it'll be better against the Packers with a lot more time to rest and recover.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm the Bengals, I see next time that the Steelers see them in a couple of weeks from now, I'm trying to do a lot of the same stuff to see how much they changed it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, go back to what's working and dance with who brought you there, and it obviously was working well. But I imagine Pittsburgh will. I should less be more. Should Pittsburgh do a little bit less? Do you think they were trying to do too much to try to big brain and beat the Bengals, or do you think it's appropriate to employ so many different coverages and variations in specialty coverages to try to combat and overcome the talented duo of Chase and Higgins and a veteran quarterback like Flacco?
Man, I think you just got to try your best to try to disguise the stuff better, and that's where I talk about more about the static end of it, because
I
Joe
think they disguised stuff. I mean, you think it was how do you define defensive disguise? Like, is it just safety rotation?
showing one look, and then because look, I mean, you do some inverted cover too, as well too, and that's a guy moving the other direction where the corner's up underneath, and uh, a safety dropping down, and your corner maintaining the other side of the cover two type situation there. So, I mean, there was obviously some of that with some of the rotation, but it almost felt like Joe Joe knew a lot of it was coming.
Yeah, he's a veteran guy. I mean, he's seen everything before, so that's the benefit and a big reason why the Bengals traded for Joe Flacco because he's a veteran guy that can come in, moving train on the fly, and has seen and done it all, and that'll accelerate his assimilation into the Bengals. But I think they had a lot of rotation. Go look at the Chuck Clark tackle that he had in the flat that you referenced Monday. That's a late, rotation spinning. Still, it's the same deep shell, single high shell, but you spun Clark down to Elliott to the deep half, and Flacco thought the flat was open, and it wasn't. Go watch the one empty
I mean,
where they have.
that was a rotation into a cover three, right? I've got it
Yeah, it
listed
was.
as a cover three.
Yeah, it was still the same, like single high to single high rotation, but you spun the safeties in different directions, which made Flacco think that the right flat was open when it wasn't because Clark was coming down, buzzing down. But think about the one empty set where they had Peyton Wilson out wide on the tight end, which is a man indicator when you put a
Mhm.
tight end or a linebacker on a tight end. They play cover two on that one, so you're having some tendency breakers in that sense. So I think Pittsburgh, and with all the coverages you mentioned, because you're right, they ran every single coverage and specialty coverages. I mean, I don't know what more they could really do from that standpoint to give different looks, because I think they really exhausted and went through the entire menu of trying to find stuff that worked.
I am very interested to what I'm going to do on top of already our chores of being a Sunday night game this week is I want to watch how the Jets try to defend the Bengals defensively and see
Hmm.
what they try to do. Now that we got a couple of games of Flacco up underneath our belt, and we got to see firsthand how the Bengals uh, manhandled the Steelers defense. I want to see if I can learn anything. And I started this morning the game previous to watch a little bit more in depth of how the Packers.
Yeah, I was going
Uh,
to ask you, did you watch that? Because that's a really
I,
good defense, really good coach.
yeah, I got about once again I had to go back through and chart the plays this morning and rewatch a lot of the stuff this morning. I got about 4 plays into the Packers game, so over the next couple of days, maybe by the time we talk on this on Friday, we can talk a little bit more because obviously we'll be previewing the Packers,
Hmm.
and I'm already going to be watching the Packers defense, but we'll talk a little bit about how the Packers went about defending the passing game and what was a little bit different.
What were Chase's stats in that game? I know the second half, the Bengals offense came alive. Flacco seemed to settle in. 10 for 94 and a touchdown on 12 targets in that loss to Green Bay.
All right. And I mean they still spread the ball around pretty good in that one overall, but 10 is different than 16
Oh yeah.
obviously, and but once again Chase could have had 20 or 24 in this game against the Steelers if we're being serious here.
And 94 and 161 are dramatically different numbers. 94 yards against the Packers, 161 against the Steelers. So yeah, big difference there. But the Packers have a good defense. Tomlin, I think, literally opened the press conference talking about Jeff Hastley, the DC in Green Bay, doing a great job over there. What a great hire that was. And that's one of those college coaches that said, I don't want to do the whole college NIL mess. He was the head coach at Boston College and left and became the DC in Green Bay, and he may get some NFL head coach looks this cycle.
Here's the thing about Chase. He's obviously one of the top wide receivers in the NFL, right? I mean, for a reason. You're not going to keep everything, you're not going to shut him out completely, but you do have to minimize and try to take away him, as often as possible, and at least force the ball to go different directions other than 20 something times him being targeted in games. So, the Steelers, that's got to be the onus on them in the rematch is you got to get Flacco to go other directions other than Chase. And even in situations, because once again, and props to them, they did a great job of either putting him in bunches or spreading him out. And anytime that he is spread out wide, whether it be on one side opposite, kind of a 3-by-1 or a 2-by-2 or something along those lines, anytime he's up and not trying to get a release, a switch release or anything like that with either one or two wide receivers right next to him, you've got to have a guy up in his face, rerouting him in a man situation with probably some help over the top to at least try to force the ball to go in a different direction. Because Flacco don't want to stand back there. I mean, he's not built. He's not built to have a 2-point in that offense, in that offensive line. He's not built to have a 2.5, 2.7. He'll get killed back there against some of these pass rushes. So you've got to, as many times as possible, take him away. Now, look, are they going to be able to run some RPO and some quick game screens to him? And obviously, and in some condensed sets as well, too. It's hard to put a guy right over top of him in man situation. You might want to think about having a slot guy up over top of him, I guess, in those situations.
As in, like, what do you mean by a slot guy in those situations?
I
Is it
mean,
like
if you're,
Eccles?
yeah, or somebody, because somebody that can maybe run with him a little bit better, or put Porter, just have Porter just go wherever he goes in there.
Yeah, I think Porter's the matchup, somebody more athletic. He's not the ideal physical player, but when you can have the safety help with Porter, kind of high-low this thing, that's my approach. Really what it comes down to for me for the rematch, Dave, is just Chase can't make those impact plays in those critical moments. End of the first half, they throw three times to him. The first one was incomplete because he bobbled the ball on the sideline, but he's wide open. That should have been a catch. They go to him next two plays with 13 yards for 8 yards. End of the game, he's getting those couple of catches, 15 yards, 18 yards. I mean, Chase is going to get his. You can't take this guy away the entire game, but you can't have him make those game-changing plays late in the first half, late in the game. On third down, he had 3 catches and 2 first downs on third down in this game. That's where Pittsburgh has to make its money. Chase is going to catch a couple passes. There's just no question about that, but he can't kill you in those big-time critical gotta-have-it moments.
Right. I mean, and if they insist on trying to move him around and get the ball to him, you've got to make Joe Flacco hold the football in those situations.
Yeah, my litmus test is just he can't burn you over the top for a big touchdown, and he can't win in those critical moments. And if you take those two things away, you've done a good job.
Okay. Yeah,
Right,
and you damn sure can't let him run free like he did on a couple of these. And look, even on one of those, what was it? The one over the middle there, they had Josefas running down the middle of the field, and Flacco could have had him on one of those if Flacco would have seen it in time, and that would have been an easy touchdown down the middle of the field.
Yeah, that was a bust. Pittsburgh's in cover 2, and Eccles isn't sure if he's the pole runner, if he's carrying that or not. He was late to do so. So that was one where Chase, you're happy Chase got that pass because the alternative was that deep ball to Josefas. And Josefas is a good player. Everyone loses Josefas in this conversation, but this is a really athletic, this guy's a track star. I talked to him at the Senior Bowl, and the dude's just giant. He got stuck in a high school wing tee offense, and so he had no recruiting coming out of. He went to on one of the Hawaiian islands, and he went to Princeton and ran track there, and got the NFL's attention late in his college career. And dude's a good player, so it's not just Chase and Higgins. It starts with those guys, but Josefas and Noah Fant can also hurt you.
Right.
And you haven't even seen Joe Burrow, and won't see Joe Burrow. And that's another component that you'll have to deal with for the long haul, knowing that those guys will be around Chase, Higgins, and Burrow for the future. All right, Dave, to kind of go back to Mike Tomlin, just wrapping a bow on the press conference, anything else he had to say to praise Arthur Smith for developing quarterbacks and handling quarterbacks and different types of quarterbacks and backgrounds, mobile ones, pocket passers, young guys, veteran types, the meshing between Smith and Rodgers, which brought so much concern and hand-wringing, and how will they ever make it work, Dave, seems to have gone up in smoke. Those two guys have worked really well together.
Yeah, they absolutely have, and I think it is kind of a testament, and Mike Tomlin hit on this about how he tries to take his style of ball and maintain his style of ball, but yet adapt, these quarterbacks and their skill sets into it. And, Mike Tomlin ran down a list of Mariota and Tannehill, grizzled veteran, and who else did he talk about? Matt Ryan. And I mean, it has been a 10. Look, I mean, he got about as best as he could get out of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson last year, right? And we obviously have seen that firsthand just with those two guys going to different organizations. I guess as a sidebar, what do you think about Justin Fields going to spend today trying to get those tire marks off of him?
Yeah, Woody Johnson running over him. And so I imagine we're going to hear very soon, and probably by the time people tune into the show, that Tyrod Taylor's going to start week 8 against the Bengals. So there's some relevancy to who the Jets are going to start this weekend as it pertains to AFC North play in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that seems to be not the official indication, but based on Woody Johnson's comments and reporting out of New York, it's going to be Taylor getting the nod, and kind of had to make that move. I don't know how you go back to Justin Fields at this
Not after what Woody said.
Yeah, especially that. I'm probably beating not a dead horse, but a horse.
The wrong horse?
Well, I was going back to Arthur Smith, a horse down the road, because I know we're in the middle of the season and no one cares, and we're just focusing on Green Bay. But is Arthur Smith going to be the OC in 2026? I really think he's going to get head coaching looks. I mean, the head coaching pool is not looking great for this upcoming cycle. With the job he's done at quarterback, I think the poor play of Fields in New York is only highlighting the job that Smith did in Pittsburgh last year. I really think this guy might be going somewhere else next year as head coach.
And we've kind of had this conversation already to some degree. Is it plausible? Absolutely, yes. Here,
I think it's more than plausible. I think I don't want to say likely. It's too early for that, but it's, it's something about plausible.
Okay. We'll see. And I know we got an email in here somewhere. I saw trying to get this thing ready for today. Someone said that the Steelers need to do everything in their power to keep Arthur Smith. And look, Arthur Smith still would like to be a head coach. A, I would think. B, you're not going to be, the Steelers specifically are not going to pay Arthur Smith an exorbitant amount of money more than he probably would get as a head coach. So to come out and ask or say that the Steelers need to do everything possible to keep Arthur Smith, other than making him, Arthur Smith, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's the only way, unless Arthur just does not like the fit at any job that he's offered.
Yeah, there's no way you could pay him more to be the OC than you would be as a head coach somewhere. Could you try to entice him and give him what is the old title of assistant head coach role with some sort of pay raise just to try to make that decision harder? Or do I want to go leave somewhere else? The bottom line is, the reader's right.
If he gets offered a job, he's going to take it.
Likely. I mean, he's talked about being careful with his next job choice. And, he's obviously in Atlanta. He knows what it looks like when things aren't great. And he did turn down the North Carolina job. Granted, that was college, but I think the job would have been his if he wanted it. It seems like he was the programs and the school's first choice. But the point is, the reader's right. That's a guy you don't want to lose. You finally have a good OC. And the problem with good OCs is they don't tend to stay OCs for too long. They get hired as head coaches because everyone's looking for offensive-minded guys and guys who can work with quarterbacks. And so Pittsburgh finally has that. And could they be searching for his replacement? And it's not that too far. It's not far away, Dave. Like 2 months from now, we're going to be in, the hiring cycle. So, or a little more than 2 months from now, 2.5 months from now. So it's not that far away to have that conversation. And man, at least as it feels right now, what a massive loss it would be to lose Arthur Smith and have to go find a new OC.
All right, you open up the can of worms there, or you brought back the horse to get beat on there. What are the most likeliest openings around the NFL? Would the Raiders move on from Pete Carroll so soon?
You never know. One and dones do happen. We'll see how the season goes. My expectation is that no, they would not move on after just firing their head coach and just bringing in this new regime. I don't think they would move on this year.
All right, Stefanski.
Possibly. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. Is probably where Stefanski comes in at. But that's a possibility for him and Andrew Berry, I think, to be part and parcel.
All right, Miami, they have not made a move yet, but it's very plausible that they could be looking for a head coach. But assuming they keep on with this bad record, they're probably going to be they're going to be looking probably for a quarterback in the draft regardless, right?
I mean, they just signed Tua, but it's hard to think that Tua is going to be the long-term option or viewed as such for a new head coach. I mean, the bottom line is, Mike McDaniel's dead man walking, so he's going to be gone by Black Monday at the latest.
All right, Tennessee is already in an interim situation, so that's definitely, especially with Arthur Smith's links back there. But and obviously got a young quarterback over there in Cam Ward.
Yeah, I think the three I think about right now, Tennessee, obviously that job's already open. Miami, that will become open at some point. And then the Giants, we'll see. Brian Daboll's earned himself some time here with the Giants researching a little bit with a play at Dart and Scatterbo. But if the season still doesn't go great overall, then I think a change is still very possible there. He's been on kind of the warm, hot seat for at least a season now.
All right, what other teams are likely to make a change here? Are the Jets going to be one and done with Aaron Glenn?
I mean, Woody obviously backed him pretty heavily publicly for whatever that's worth. But if this thing keeps going down, I think Glenn will come back for a second season. But certainly that can't be out of the question if it's a 1-in-16 type year.
Arizona's probably not going to do anything, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't think so on Arizona. I mean,
what about New Orleans?
No, not in the first year with Kellen Moore.
All right, so you're talking about really potentially what, four, maybe 5 openings? Houston's not going to make a move, are they?
There's always someone that surprises you during that hiring cycle. So if you wanted to kind of give an oddball one, sure. Baltimore, what is Harbaugh's status in Baltimore if they can't right the ship whenever Lamar gets back, which seems to be this week, even though he didn't practice Monday? Is that completely off the table?
All right. Who would you? I don't want to go down the. It's halfway through your season.
I'm really watching Tennessee with Arthur Smith. There were so many reasons. There's so many connections there to ownership with his own ties to Tennessee. He's a Memphis kid, and so there's reason for him to want to quote unquote go home. They're probably looking for not an up and comer the way the Callahan was. They want someone established in that Vrabel mold, strong culture, leader. There's just a lot of reason to believe Smith's going to be a finalist at the least for that job.
All right, back to Tomlin. I guess really the only other thing that he talked about, a lot of Aaron Rodgers in there and talking about. I think he's probably getting more comfortable with not only the people, the timing component, the personnel component, but the spacing, the strategic component, where people are. He's always done that. That's always been a component of his game. From my perspective, the more it shows up, it's just an indicator of comfort in him. Also, was asked about if he has any sense of the magnitude of this matchup for Aaron Rodgers facing his former team. He says, I don't. He says, Aaron has been at a long time. He's got an awesome relationship with this game. I haven't been with him for a long time, but he's been fired up every single week. I imagine it's going to be the same. I imagine some external things are going to make more out of it than it is for him. He's playing to win. That's what he does. That's kind of my perspective. And then he asked too, kind of if he's learned anything more about him that maybe he didn't already know previously. He says I've been in this thing long enough. You don't stumble into 20 plus years of service in this business. There's unique habits, unique relationships with the game of football. I anticipated that. It still doesn't make it less impressive. His day to day and what he's willing to do. He's been in the building all day today, meaning yesterday. He loves it. It's who he is. He loves the process. He loves to talk, basically all the same things that we've heard, over basically since he signed. He loves football.
Mm-hmm.
He loves teaching. He loves being around his teammates. He's been the model guy. He hadn't been on McAfee. He hadn't really caused any waves. He's not a guy that's afraid to wear his emotions on the field and try to correct problems, right there, then and there on the field. And that obviously gets caught by the cameras, but I don't have an issue of that. I think kind of as you stated, unless this team starts losing, stringing together multiple losses, maybe that will get magnified a little bit more. But I have no complaints with how Aaron Rodgers has fit into this thing, and Mike Tomlin seemingly doesn't either.
And the question will start to push towards what is Rodgers' status in 2026? Is he going to come back? I think Pittsburgh would be very much open to having him back. Kim Hayward on his Not Just Football podcast today said basically that he should keep playing, that he basically endorsed Rodgers returning. And how could you not right now?
Yeah, there's no reason to think of the way he's the last couple of games, the way he's moving, the way he's seeing things, the way he's fitting in with Arthur Smith and the personnel, and there's no reason to think that he can't play at least one more season. So, yeah, I think he kind of maybe regrets kind of saying on McAfee earlier in the offseason there that and
He's kind of walked it back.
he has kind of walked it back a little bit there, but I think I do think he would potentially be open with it, considering he's if he stays healthy and if this team can get into the playoffs and have some success.
And again, he's just having fun. He just seems to be enjoying himself, which is the big test because he was not doing any of that in his 2 seasons with the Jets, with the injury and the terrible 2024 season in New York. So we'll see. If they lose a playoff game, everyone will say, get rid of Aaron, go find somebody else. They can't win a playoff game. They can't get over the hump. You know how this stuff goes. But right now, it's certainly looking a lot more plausible than it was a couple months ago.
All right. I think we beat up the Tomlin portion pretty good there.
Yeah, and that's really all there was. I know players are beginning to speak right now. We'll get the first injury report out on Wednesday here from Rodgers throughout this next day or two. So anything else, Dave, feel free to share. If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's get to the email machine here. Reader email from Joe Glusco. Hello, Dave and Trevor Kozora's daddy.
Oh, my goodness.
Someone has sent a message or something that said, our voices are cringe.
Yeah, they're not great. That's fair.
Hello, Dave and Trevor Kozora's daddy. We've been hearing a lot about some of the younger players on the roster. Since I don't watch the tape, I'm curious about your takes on the following players, how the players are playing. Derek Harmon, Troy Falatano, Y.A. Black, Mason McCormick. Thanks. Love the show. That's Joe G from our buddy in York, PA. Derek Harmon, I think, here's real quick, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
This team, according to your charting, I'm opening up us here for another 20 minutes, so no, but they were in base 3-4 on 2 true runs against the Bengals. One of them was an explosive one by Chase, and the other one was like 14, 16 yards or something by Chase. Other instances, I think I pulled, there were like 13 or 14 runs that Keanu Benton was on the field in either nickel or I think one was 3-3-5. And they gave up obviously a lot of yards on those runs. Does this team in base need to put a quality out there? Plain and simple, I think that's first and foremost. And does Benton for a little while need to be relegated to pass rush situations, pass rush downs?
Well, it's hard to say just that because if you're a nickel, which you're still going to be in most of the time, especially against 11 personnel teams like the Bengals, anything can be a pass. 1st and 10 is passing down in today's NFL. I mean, with a quality in base, yeah, I think you can give that a look. I'm not going to, and I know you're not necessarily doing this, but asking the question coming off this Bengals game, the run defense was so much more problematic than just Benton in this one. I think there's one run you can gig Benton for, but overall they just couldn't get off of blocks as a unit. They couldn't tackle well enough.
Wrong gaps. They weren't gap sound on a few.
Yeah. So Benton had been playing some really good football. I think the previous two games, his game
good.
Was on the rise. I think some of the best football of his career. Look at the production, look at the pass rush. I mean, the run defense maybe wasn't amazing, but it was good. I mean, the run defense as a team was really good, and Benton obviously played a role in that.
All right, getting back to some of these players, Derek Harmon. Look, for the most part, a lot of these guys on the defensive line were fairly invisible. Ya Black as well too, and he's one of the ones in here. I think Harmon continues to make progress and learning more about his role in the defense and playing the run and getting in on some pass rush situations. The bad thing is the most recent thing that we have to talk about here is the most recent game, and for the most part, Harmon and Black were pretty invisible in that one.
Yeah, I think overall Harmon's done a good job. He hasn't felt like a 21 or just newly 22-year-old rookie that's missed some time. I think he's been pretty veteran savvy and smart, especially in his pass rush ability. The rush hasn't been amazing, but in terms of containing and rush lane integrity, I think he's been good there. I think he's been strong and stout. He had a really good game against Cleveland. So I like how he's coming along for a guy that is young, really 1 year breakout year in college and missed part of the summer and early this part of the season, which can be pretty tough for a rookie. We saw Roman Wilson struggle to get on that moving train. Now, granted, Wilson missed more time than Harmon, but I think Harmon's done a nice job. Black, I think, has kind of regressed a little bit. Thought he wasn't as sturdy and was getting moved a fair amount against the Bengals in those limited snaps he had.
All right, Fautano McCormick. I think the arrows, as Mike Tomlin likes to say, moving in the right direction with both those two. He was asked to single those guys out, I guess, in yesterday's press conference, and he said, "Look, it's just not the two of them. It's the offensive line as a whole, and the tight ends and everything that they've been utilizing to help things out there." But I think Fautano and McCormick are definitely have progressed together, specifically in these last couple of games.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's the offensive line as a whole, as you said, as Tomlin said, has gone in the right direction. And they were at the Pens game, and Rodgers was there last night. So just another reminder of kind of the team bonding. And Rodgers seems to be a pretty likable guy in that locker room.
All right, I hate to bring it up, but I'm knocking on bunch of wood here. But fortunately, and you look around the NFL, this offensive line's gotten to play a lot together so far. Something to the tune of 97, 98% of the total offensive snaps. They've had everybody out there and really kind of mostly other either somebody's shoe coming off or kneel down situations and getting Anderson maybe in there at left guard. This unit should be moving in the right direction. Because of the cohesiveness of the draft pedigree of these guys and being able to play together more, and then the fact that as a whole, all five of these offensive linemen there hadn't been very many missed snaps. So hopefully I don't jinx this, but yeah, they. And we said before the start of the season, we got to start seeing, not just baby steps being made. These need to be significant steps forward. And I think we've seen a couple of those along the way, and they're going to have to do this again against a good Green Bay front on Sunday here. So I do think both those young guys he mentioned, McCormick and Fautano, are moving in the right direction. And I think pass protection wise, overall, this offensive line did a good job against the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty low-tier unit without Hendrickson, but you block who you're blocking, whoever they have, and they did a nice job and did a good job in the scramble drills. That's a really good point, Dave. How many meaningful snaps has Pittsburgh played without their entire front five this season?
Not many. As we said, Sayamalo had to come off for a play because of the shoe coming off. I don't know.
The only other instance was on a kneel down against Cleveland when McCollum came in for, I think, the final 2-3 kneel downs. But
yeah,
I think that's it. But besides the Sayamalu, the one snap against, is that Minnesota on the tush push?
I don't remember specifically, but I know for a fact, just from snap totals and percentages alone, these guys hadn't come off the field much.
Right. So Pittsburgh has been really fortunate there. I know offensive line depth was a big concern of mine, and knock on wood, as you said, has not been tested to date.
Right. So, that you're fortunate within that, and hopefully the byproduct is that A, that luck continues to happen, and B, that you continue to see strides in this thing, specifically in the running game, because the better the running game gets, it's going to take the onus off of the passing game.
And it looks like McCormick's talking and said Aaron Rodgers was the one who spearheaded the trip to the Pens game last night, set up the
All right.
box, and got the guys together.
All right, good on him. Brett Nile, I've been listening to your discussions about the potential of adding a wide receiver, and I agree with your two basic premises that you need to add a legitimate difference maker and that they're not going to part with 2026 draft capital to do it. To me, there is one way to add that receiver with these two conditions. He says, I'm not saying I would advocate for this, but you could trade Roman Wilson for that veteran receiver. If you bring in a legitimate receiver, somebody has to go out the door. You also have very few snaps to develop Roman Wilson right now, and the team doesn't seem to be interested in doing that at the expense of winning. He does have third-round pedigree, and so would serve as developmental piece on a cheap rookie deal for another team. I get the premise there, but I mean, put yourself on the acquiring team. It's easy to try to line things up for the Steelers, but what has Roman Wilson done so far outside of his college tape in the NFL that would make a team say, you know what, in lieu of draft capital, give us Roman Wilson?
Yeah, not much. I mean, I think he played well against the Bengals. The box score doesn't necessarily show it, but I think he did a nice job. But, on the whole, there's not a whole lot there for teams to get excited about.
I mean, if you could do it, and especially if it was someone like Olave or Jacoby Myers, who, by the way, came out yesterday and said, oh, yeah, I'm still open to being traded, by the way. Olave, Jacoby Myers, somebody difference maker that maybe you could obviously keep to more than just the half of the season on top of it. Would those teams really be, those teams are selling off for a reason. They probably want draft picks more so than a developmental guy in Roman Wilson, who still doesn't have a lot of NFL tape. I mean, this is a guy too that's banged up in the preseason, right?
Was he?
I mean, didn't get. I mean, he got some look. Didn't, or I guess that was his more.
No, he might have been hurt this summer. I
thought he
runs
was
together.
But I mean, he did make hay some in the preseason. But is that enough? Is that enough tape there? Being enough tape for a team to say,
Sure.
You know what, the real diamond in the rough here is Roman Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, not a bad idea to brainstorm and give some different thoughts, and then maybe trade Roman Wilson and something else, and a later pick or next year or 2027 pick. Even though I think it's kind of tough to do on expiring contract players. But yeah, I mean, I get the idea, but probably not the outcome.
All right, and the other one from Brett now we already kind of hit on. He says if the team is going to draft a quarterback this year, they need to find a way to keep Arthur Smith. I mean, other than chaining them inside the facility.
All right.
I mean, really, how are you going to keep? How are you legitimately going to keep a guy like Arthur Smith if he gets?
I mean, you can try some things. You can give him the upgraded title, which I assume would come with some upgraded pay, and I don't know what else you could do, but I get the idea of you got to at least try to keep him.
All right, Bill Ewan says, hey, guys, we all value your opinions. Guess that's why we all listen. I hear nonstop how the Steelers' D was predictable, but also hear how they tried a bunch of different coverages and mixed man and zone. So which is it? Can both be true? How would you answer, Bill?
I guess in some sense it could be true, depending on what kind of portion of the defense you're talking about. I really would not call Pittsburgh's defense or their game plan against the Bengals predictable. I think they did mix it up, potentially to their detriment, potentially trying to do too much. But on the whole, I would not call it a predictable game plan.
All right. Let's see here if we can move on along. I lost my place here. To the next one we go. Rich writes in, so stopping Cincy is impossible. Hey, both love the show. Was the Cincinnati loss on scheme, players, and coaching? Well, we've already kind of tackled that a little bit. Of course, Dave is going to say yes. I mean, they got out coached, out schemed, and then some of the positions that they put some of these guys in against a talented guy like Jamar Chase, it was all that added together. There. He says, of course, Dave is going to say yes, but apparently the Steelers tried every coverage possible. They did, and still couldn't stop Cincy. He says, so that means it's impossible. Is Cincinnati bound to win the Super Bowl if Tomlin's D or studs can't stop them? Is it just really concerning that it all seems Tomlin's D can only stop the run or the pass and not both?
No, I mean, I think the question sounds a little tongue-in-cheek about impossible to stop the Bengals and Super Bowl bound. It's a good offense. They had really talented players. When you add a veteran quarterback, it can make that offense be a lot more successful. So, I think short week on the road. We know the history there. We'll just see how it looks the next time out. I think that next time out will be really telling.
Mike Shorter writes in, Alex and Dave, how are Thornhill and Tano? Didn't we hit this the other day, didn't we?
How they're doing? Yeah, we got that one. Yeah.
All right. I think we got that one here. Let's see if I got another one here from Todd Jitzler. What is the biggest problem with our defense? Is it schematics, coaching, or it same of the same stuff here? Could a different defensive Yeah, I think we kind of hit on that the other day, or something similar to it the other day there. So I think we got all of it. I think we're coming up on an hour and a half here. We will be back on, what's today? Friday. And we'll talk, the coordinators will talk by then. A couple of players will have talked by then. We'll have a couple of injury reports in our back pocket. We'll probably know the transactions. Anything happen on the transaction wire since we've been talking here? It does not look like
no,
it.
but the couple Steelers have moved on to the next round of Hall of Fame ballots. They are Gary Anderson, kicker Gary Anderson, linebacker James Harrison, center Marquise Pouncey, and wide receiver Hines Ward are now the 52. I don't know if it's semifinalists or what exactly the term is, but those 4 Steelers have moved on to the next round of Hall of Fame consideration and voting.
All right. So that means Pouncey's in here, right?
Yeah, Anderson, Harrison, Pouncey, and Ward.
All right. None of those guys are going to make the class, right?
Probably not. Pouncey's in his first year, so it'll be interesting to see how far he goes to start getting a litmus test of that. Of the 4, Harrison could be interesting, but I would not anticipate any of these guys donning a gold jacket next year.
I agree. All right. And then obviously we're angling to have a Packers beat writer on the Friday show, and hopefully that does not fall through as well. So, in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you'd like an ad-free, follow the directions that way. Hit the ad-free button. We didn't. Alex has got a great article about instead of penny for your thoughts, a dime for your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So we did get to hit on that, but Alex, short and sweet to the point on why maybe we should see some more dime going forward here from this defense, specifically once maybe Cory Trice gets healthy and running again. So make sure to check that out there. So until Friday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.